Rain poured over the city like a curtain, washing away the noise and flashing lights that surrounded the corporate tower. Ethan Cole, the single dad janitor, finished his shift mopping the marble floors of the executive wing. His sleeves were rolled up, revealing strong forearms and old scars that told silent stories of a life before the mop and bucket. He was quiet, humble, and efficient, qualities that made him invisible to most people in the building. But not to everyone. Lila Matthews, the CEO's daughter, had noticed him weeks ago. She was nothing like her father, kind, soft-spoken, and curious about people who others ignored. She often stayed late in her father's office working on charity projects, and Ethan had once found her crying quietly in the break room. She didn't see him at first, but when he offered her a clean napkin and an awkward smile, something unspoken passed between them, a fragile thread of trust. Tonight, that thread would be tested like never before. The building had mostly emptied. The storm outside had cut power to a few blocks, leaving the tower on emergency generators. Ethan was about to clock out when he heard a sound that made every muscle in his body tighten, the unmistakable click of a gun being cocked. He froze. The sound came from the CEO's office. Lila's office light was still on. Without thinking, Ethan dropped the mop and ran toward it. His boots echoed down the hallway as he moved faster than a janitor should, instincts buried deep within him roaring back to life. Inside the office, Lila stood near the window, her face pale. A masked man in a dark jacket aimed a gun at her chest. "Where's your father's laptop?" the intruder hissed. "You have 10 seconds. Lila's voice trembled. I don't know what you're talking about." The man stepped closer. Ethan didn't wait. He burst into the room, his voice low and commanding. "Put it down." The gun swung toward him. The intruder hesitated, surprised to see a janitor standing like a soldier, his stance steady, eyes unflinching. "Who the hell are you?" The man snarled. "Just the cleanup crew," Ethan said. His tone was calm, too calm. Lila's breath hitched. She recognized something in his voice, a strength she hadn't seen before. The gunman turned back toward her. "Stay out of this, old man." Ethan took a slow step forward. "You don't want to do this." In a flash, the gun fired. Lila screamed. Ethan moved. The bullet struck him in the shoulder, spinning him backward. He hit the ground but pushed himself up, clutching his arm as blood soaked his shirt. His eyes never left the gunman. Lila was frozen in terror, unable to move. Ethan reached for the nearby chair and hurled it across the room, hitting the man square in the chest. The gun clattered to the floor. "Run, Lila," Ethan shouted. She hesitated, but his voice, deep, protective, snapped her out of it. She ran toward the door just as the gunman tackled Ethan to the ground. They struggled, grunting, fists slamming into each other. Ethan was older but stronger, fueled by something primal. He locked his arm around the man's neck and slammed his head against the floor. Lila grabbed the fallen gun, hands shaking. "Ethan, go," he roared again. "Get security." But she didn't. She couldn't leave him. The gunman broke free and lunged for her. Ethan saw the move coming and, without hesitation, threw himself in front of her again. The second shot rang out, hitting him square in the chest. He fell to his knees, his breath ragged. Lila caught him before he hit the ground. "No, no, no. Ethan, stay with me." The shooter's mask slipped off during the struggle, revealing a face Ethan recognized, a security contractor who'd been recently fired for theft. Ethan's jaw tightened. "You picked the wrong building," he muttered. Sirens echoed from the stairwell. Security had finally been alerted by the gunshots. The intruder turned to flee, but Lila raised the gun with trembling hands. "Don't move," she cried. Her voice was shaking, but her aim didn't waver. The man froze just as guards stormed the office, tackling him to the ground. Lila dropped the gun and turned back to Ethan. His eyes were half closed, his breathing shallow. She pressed her hands against his chest to stop the bleeding. "Stay with me, please. You saved my life." He looked up at her with a faint smile. "That's what dads do." Tears blurred her vision. "You shouldn't have done that." He chuckled weakly. "Couldn't help it." The paramedics rushed in moments later. As they lifted him onto the stretcher, Lila grabbed his hand. "I'm coming with you," she said fiercely. Ethan wanted to argue, but he was too weak. He just nodded slightly before darkness took him. Hours later, sterile light flickered in the hospital room. The storm had finally passed, leaving the city quiet. Lila sat beside his bed, holding his hand, refusing to leave. She hadn't stopped replaying the moment, the way he'd stepped in front of her without a second thought. When his eyes finally opened, she let out a sob of relief. "Hey," he whispered. His voice was raspy, but warm. "You okay?" She laughed through her tears. "You're asking me that? You took 2 bullets. He smiled faintly. "Missed the good parts." She shook her head, unable to stop smiling. "You saved my life, Ethan. You could have died. I've been through worse," he said softly. "My little girl, she's the reason I get up every day. I couldn't let you die. You reminded me of her." Lila blinked. "You have a daughter?" "Yeah," he said, 8 years old. "Thinks I'm just some superhero in disguise." She squeezed his hand tighter. "She's right." Silence filled the room for a moment before she added, "My father wants to see you. He's different now. When he found out what happened, he didn't yell, he didn't blame anyone. He just said, 'Find him. I owe that man everything.'" Ethan looked away. "I don't need anything from him." Lila smiled. "That's exactly why he respects you." The next morning, the CEO himself walked into the hospital room. William Matthews was a man known for his pride, his ruthlessness in business, and his distance from everyone around him, including his daughter. But as he stood at Ethan's bedside, he seemed smaller somehow, humbled. "I've spent my life surrounded by men who'd sell their souls for money," William said quietly. "And yet the one man who had nothing risked everything to save what I love most." Ethan said nothing. William continued, "You were ex-military, weren't you?" My security chief recognized the name, Staff Sergeant Ethan Cole. Ethan's jaw tightened. "That was a long time ago. And now you're mopping floors." "It's honest work," Ethan said simply. William nodded. "It is, but it's not where you belong. When you're ready, there's a place for you here, head of security, full benefits, your daughter's education covered." Ethan's eyes widened slightly. "You don't have to do that." "I know," William said. "But I want to." Lila smiled, tears glistening in her eyes. "Say yes, Ethan." He looked at her, then at the ceiling. "I'll think about it." Weeks later, Ethan returned to the building, his shoulder still bandaged but his stride strong again. The staff greeted him differently now, with nods, respect, and whispers of the man who'd taken bullets for the CEO's daughter. When Lila saw him walk in, she grinned. "Back already? Had to make sure you're not causing trouble," he teased. She laughed, the sound light and real. "I think you like saving me." He raised an eyebrow. "Let's hope you don't need saving again." But deep down, she knew, if it ever came to that, he would do it again without hesitation. Because that's who Ethan Cole was. A protector, a father, a man whose courage didn't come from medals or titles, but from love. And somewhere out there, his daughter would one day learn the truth, that her dad didn't just save lives in stories. He lived it. The city moved on, the headlines faded, but within the walls of that corporate tower, people still whispered about the night the janitor stepped in front of a bullet and said the words that silenced chaos. "You're safe now."